nothing but the truth. The polls for the 90 assembly seats, of which Jammu has 43 seats and Kashmir 47 seats, are being held in 3 phases, starting from September 18th and ending on October 1st. When I went there, it is no more bullets and blood that will determine the future of Jammu and Kashmir, but the ballot and the barnstorming politicians. So much security measures means that Kashmir or the Kashmir issue remains a high priority and needs an urgent resolution. That was a key theme. And she said apart from that, there are key issues such as high unemployment, inflation, drug addiction and environmental degradation that will dominate these elections. The Jamaat-e-Islami Kashmir, which was prescribed by the government for anti-national activities, is actually, and therefore banned from contesting elections, is putting up proxy candidates to fight on its behalf. Omar Abdullah told me our identity, our honor, dignity and everything has been snatched from us. We even have lost our statehood since the last time he said that we had contested elections in 2014. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. Every week, we will look at key issues of concern and bring you perspectives and clarity as to why these matter to you without holding back on the truth. With assembly elections being held after a gap of 10 years, there are big winds of democratic and political change that is currently blowing across Jammu and Kashmir. The polls for the 90 assembly seats, of which Jammu has 43 seats, and Kashmir 47 seats, are being held in 3 phases, starting from September 18th and ending on October 1st. The results will be declared on October 8th alongside that of Haryana, which is also going to the polls. Now, I traveled to both Jammu and Kashmir to understand the importance of this big election that is there. And in one of the areas I went to is Tral, if you recall, is the hometown of the late Burhan Wani, the separatist Hizbul Mujahideen chief who died very young. But when I went there, it is no more bullets and blood that will determine the future of Jammu and Kashmir, but the ballot and the barnstorming politicians. Now, Wani's death in a firefight with security forces in 2016 sparked off a fierce round of militancy that left 90 civilians dead. The scene is dramatically different from what was there at that time. And when I went to Tral, I met a much more mellowed mehbooba mufti, the former chief minister of the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir state, who had presided over that particular troubled period before resigning in 2018. And now she was holding a poll rally at Tral's bus station, which was crammed with white taxis honking for passengers. Mehbooba is president of the Progressive Democratic Party, the PDP, and it was her party that had earlier entered into an alliance with the Bharatiya Janata Party after the 2014 assembly elections. That alliance ended 4 years later with a bitter parting of ways and the fall of the Mehbooba government. At a meeting in Tral, there were machine gun-toting government security forces almost everywhere, including on the rooftop of a dhaba that overlooks the venue. Now, pointing to the columns of these concertina wires, the barbed wires that cordon off the meeting ground and the armed guards, Mehbooba told me, and she said, so much security measures means that Kashmir or the Kashmir issue remains a high priority and needs an urgent resolution. That was a key theme. And she said apart from that, there are key issues such as high unemployment, inflation, drug addiction and environmental degradation that will dominate these elections. Now, let us first examine why this poll is so significant. This is a defining assembly poll for more reasons than just one. It is the first time that assembly polls are being held after the Modi government's abrogation of Article 370 of the Constitution on August 5th, 2019, which the Article 370 had given J&K special autonomous status not enjoyed by any other state in India, and that was abolished. This election or this assembly poll is the first after Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated from Ladakh and demoted to a union territory status. Also, when I spoke to Omar Abdullah, a former chief minister and currently vice president of the National Conference Party, which is one of the main parties contesting the elections in the valley, along with the Congress, an alliance with the Congress in Jammu. Now, Omar Abdullah told me, and I'm quoting him, "This election has come after much kicking and screaming on the part of the central government, which didn't want to hold these elections and did so only after the Supreme Court ordered that they be completed before the 30th of September. Now, there is another fest in this assembly which will have a lifespan of 5 years as compared to 6 years in the past. And as I mentioned earlier, the number of seats have been expanded to 90 seats, despite the fact that Ladakh has been removed. Earlier, there were 87 seats. Now, it is also, and that's the most unusual thing, is that after almost 3 decades, separatist forces have not called for a boycott and are actively contesting the polls. Now, if you saw the Lok Sabha polls that concluded in June 2024, that saw a record 58.4% voting in Jammu and Kashmir. That is a jump of 30 percentage points as compared to the 2019 Lok Sabha election. So this time, the assembly turnout is expected to be much higher, especially in the terror-prone assembly constituencies in the valley, where, if you recall, voting had dropped to below 25% in 2014. And with what we are also seeing is very unusual, that the Jamaat-e-Islami Kashmir, which was prescribed by the government for anti-national activities, is actually, and therefore banned from contesting elections, is putting up proxy candidates to fight on its behalf. That's the sea change. Now, Omar Abdullah told me our identity, our honor, dignity, and everything has been snatched from us. We even have lost our statehood since the last time he said that we had contested elections in 2014. But he says the National Conference is even now seeking votes for the assembly, even though it does not have the adequate powers we need because it's still a union territory. But the NC and its alliance partners hope that if they come to power, that includes the Congress, they will make the assembly powerful again. If you go down and look at the various parties that's there, the BJP is the strongest party on the ground, particularly in Jammu. Now, when I traveled across to Jammu's Katwa district that borders Punjab, Tarun Chugh, the BJP energetic National General Secretary in charge of Jammu and Kashmir, is truly trying to marshal his forces to attain what the BJP and the Sangh Parivar, the RSS, dream of, which is to form a government and also appoint their own chief minister for the first time in Jammu and Kashmir. That's the big dream of the BJP in both Jammu and the valley. Now, one of the things that the PDP and NC talk about when we go for their election campaign is that they talk about how they feel humiliated by the center for them abrogating Article 370 and demoting the state to a union territory. But the BJP in J&K is focused on playing the nationalism card and also the development card. And they, of course, tom-tom all their achievements while they're on campaign. Now, Tarun Chugh, who was wearing a saffron turban when I witnessed a well-organized rally by the BJP in the outskirts of the town, seems to have adopted a vastly different strategy from what the valley parties were doing. He, in fact, began his old speech by evoking nationalism and citing how the Modi government had tamed terror in the valley, apart from delivering on the development front. He said that no more is Jammu being treated as a poor cousin because they've improved connectivity through roads, provided hospitals, including an AIIMS at Samba, and had plans to convert Jammu into a major industrial and tourist hub. And one of the phrases that he used as the crowds cheered over there is, from a terrorist capital, we will make J&K a hub of tourism for the world. And he also added, this election by itself shows that Bharat has won and the anti-national forces backed by Pakistan have lost. So that's the stakes. That's what they've talked about. Now, what the Modi government and the BJP has done is, and of course this is a moment of reckoning for them, because in the past 5 years since they ruled, they have tried, in fact adopted a three-pronged strategy to achieve the goals. And the first was to crack down on separatist groups and militants and to ensure that law and order was enforced and no outbreaks of violence, including stone throwing, happened during this tenure. And that, to some extent, and in fact a large extent, they've succeeded in stopping the stone throwing, and the valley is largely peaceful. The second was for the BJP to hard focus on development, especially on building infrastructure, including roads and bridges, as they did both in Jammu as well as in the valley. The third was to build an alternative political leadership in the valley that excluded what they call the Parivarvad, or the dynastic rule of the Abdullahs, Muftis, and the Nehru-Gandhi family that had dominated J&K politics for the past 70 years. On the first two, which is in terms of bringing down the terror quotient as well as in terms of development, the BJP and the Modi government has done pretty well. And I listened to Mr. Manoj Sinha, who is the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, and one of the points he makes that apart from the fact that there has been zero tolerance against terrorism, and therefore the stone pelting incidents have come down, if you have traveled into the valley, and particularly at Lal Chowk, which was at one time the epicenter of all the protest, today he said it's so peaceful that you could go at midnight and have an ice cream over there. And in fact, tourists are doing that. He cited that as an example of how secure the valley had become as compared to its very troubled past. So on law and order, right across, they've been able to clamp down on terror groups and actually bring down the number of terror attacks that's there. Of course, recently, there's been a setback as the entire epicenter of terror attacks has moved towards Jammu. That was less protected because the focus was on the valley. And in the last 3-4 months, there have been major strikes, but the security forces have come down and clamped on that and have begun to detect these terrorists and eliminate them. That's what they said when we were there. So on the terror front and on the law and order front, the BJP has made tremendous strides, which is creditable to them, and that is what they're talking about during this election. Now, if you look at the development front, which is the other major card that they're playing, the Modi government has made, again, impressive strides on connectivity, both in terms of road and rail. These include the Chenab railway bridge, which costs around rupees 14,000 crore, the Banihal-Kazigand tunnel, which again costs around rupees 3,100 crore, and of course the Zojila tunnel, that cost about 6,809 crores. Now, these were very critical connecting points for the roads. And apart from that, they also talk of the fact that the rupees 40,000 crore Delhi-Katra Greenfield Expressway is also getting ready. So that's one of their big things in terms of infrastructure that the BJP sees. They've done tremendous amount of work over there in the last 5 years. In terms of business, the BJP government claims that because of the new industrial policy that they introduced in the past 4 years, over rupees 1.26 lakh crores worth of investment proposals were received, of which around rupees 6,600 crores had been realized, and this has generated close to 5.5 lakh jobs. That is the claim that they make in their manifesto. But opposition parties are skeptical of such claims, and Altaf Bukhari, president of the Apni party, which was once seen as very close to the BJP and was backing, and the BJP in fact was backing it, told me, and this is the words he used, there is no tufan in the development, and most of these infrastructure projects were started by earlier governments, so the BJP can't really take credit for it. And he says, and he said it quite fervently, and Altaf Bukhari is also a businessman, he says Kashmir is in a financial mess, there is no business, no money or jobs. Prices of land has gone down by 50%, he says, and he says, I mean, we have not been able to verify it, but over 16 lakh unemployed youth are there, and these include graduates and postgraduates. So that is something of a great concern. Now, if you look at the elections per se and the seats that's there, it's clear if Jammu has 43 seats and the Valley has 47 seats, that is Kashmir, then the main strength of the BJP is in the Hindu-dominated Jammu region. Now, in the 2014 Assembly elections, it won 25 seats, which enabled it to ally with the PDP to form a government then. Now, it is extremely vital for the BJP to win at least 30 to 35 seats of these 43 in the state if it has to achieve its goal of forming a government on its own. Because then what it could do is that it could combine with other parties in the valley and have a coalition government, but being the dominant force. Now, of course, there has been a decline in the percentage of the BJP's vote, which should be worrying for the party, because in the Lok Sabha elections that was held in 2024, their percentage of votes have come down from 46, that is the BJP, from 46.7% in 2019 right across the state to 24.36% in 2024. So it does indicate that the Saffron Party, despite all the advantages that it had, is struggling with its own set of challenges. Now, if you take what they're planning to do to reduce, in some senses, to reduce the odds in the valley, the BJP has used the odds it faces in the valley, because the valley has 47 seats. The BJP used the Delimitation Commission to alter the electoral landscape in the last 2-3 years. Now, Jammu seats were increased from the 37 that it was there earlier in the 2014 elections to 43 seats now, while Kashmir's tally went up by just one, from 46 to 47. So what that has done is that you've got more seats in Jammu, 6 more seats that are there, and therefore the number of seats it needs to get to a majority in the assembly is far reduced in that sense. And the other thing they did was that 7 seats were reserved for scheduled castes, which is now restricted to the Jammu region. And of the 9 seats reserved for scheduled tribes, 6 are in Jammu and 3 in Kashmir. So the BJP is also focused on these reserved seats, mainly in the mountainous regions of Rajouri and Poonch. And these, in many senses, since they throw up so many seats, these constituencies are dominated by at least 50% of the Gujar population and the upper caste Pahadis, and therefore electorally significant for government formation. So the BJP has actively wooed these communities, and in terms of, has even granted reservation, a scheduled tribe reservation to Pahadis, and therefore bringing them on par with the tribal Gujar and Bakarwal community. This, of course, has also created some resentment among them, even though people say that it has boosted the BJP chances, and this would enable them to influence 10 more seats, which is all very critical, because as I said, the BJP can only touch 30 to 35 seats. The halfway mark is 45, it needs 46 seats, and any additional seat it can get from any other region, not only in Jammu but across the valley, would help it considerably. So that's where the battle lies. But let's be very clear that despite the fact that the BJP had all the obvious advantages of running the government, of influencing a lot of the decisions that went into development, into law and order, as well as in the reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir, the task for the BJP to win is a really uphill one. If you look at what the real issues are, the party is facing discord over the allocation of tickets, apart from serious performance issues. Many of the old guard in Jammu are resentful of the new party hoppers getting tickets while they have been ignored or left out. The party is also under pressure from the rising unemployment figures, the economic slump that we talked of earlier, and interestingly, local issues like rising power and water bills, which has really upset the people. I spoke to a political expert, and he didn't want to be quoted, but he said, and this is a very important quote, he said, people are fed up of being governed by unelected leaders and bureaucrats in the past 6 years under central rule. And he went on to say there is a perception that the administration is unmindful of their concerns and the political vacuum is being felt. He also added that there has been an overstatement of the development agenda with more of window dressing, and Jammu and Kashmir has really punched far below its weight when it comes to industrial development in the last couple of years. Of course, this is a point of view. The BJP differs from that. The advantage for the BJP is that the Congress party, its main rival in Jammu, is yet to get its act together fully and put up a formidable fight against it. But the grand old party may benefit because of the widespread anti-incumbency against the BJP, and that is one of the problems that the BJP will have to tackle. Now, when it comes to the valley, and here the BJP's policy seems to be divide and rule, and this is the accusation that people like Omar Abdullah and mehbooba Mufti are making against the BJP, saying that they are propping up a whole lot of independents and other kinds of forces, and therefore trying to bring their votes down and therefore control the outcome in the valley so that these two parties get less. Now, if you take a look at what has happened, you will see that these three, the main issues that these three major parties, or two major parties, the National Conference as well as the PDP, they are focusing on the restoration of the special status in their manifesto, which is Article 370 in various forms. So what the BJP has done is that earlier it had relied in the past elections on parties that are called the King's parties, that are seen to be close to New Delhi, like the J&K Apni Party and the People's Conference. Of course, both of them will deny it and say that they were not aligned to the BJP, but that's something that is now widely talked about, that they were in some senses being backed by the BJP. But both of these parties underperformed in the Lok Sabha elections, drawing something like 7% of the votes, which led to a lot of internal turmoil among them. And let's not forget also, Sajad Lone even lost the contest in Baramulla along with Omar Amullah, and that was the surprise victory of Engineer Rashid of the Awami Ittihad Party. And he was a former two-time MLA who was jailed for anti-national activities and was in jail. And he won, despite being in jail, with a margin of over 4,72,000 votes. That was the big surprise, and experts say that Rashid's victory was an expression of the frustration of the voters against the established political parties and, importantly, a vote against New Delhi. Now, Rashid secured bail on September 11th to campaign for the elections during this particular time, and he's putting up over 20 candidates. Now, the National Conference has been questioning, that is Omar Abdullah has been questioning as to how he's been able to fund his campaign, and the fact that both these parties, the NC and the PDP, dub Rashid as the B team of the BJP. Now, that is a dangerous, not a dangerous, but an allegation against Rashid that could be damning to his entire campaign, because anyone who's perceived to be close to the BJP in the valley could begin to lose votes, as we saw in the previous election, Lok Sabha election as well. Now, what Rashid's victory has done is it's inspired separatists to join the fray, leading to a huge surge in public participation in election rallies, as well as in the nominations for the polls. If you look at the total number of candidates in the first two phases, 450 candidates are standing in the fray for the first time in terms of independents that are contesting. Now, that's an enormous number. And these include, as I mentioned earlier, members of the banned Jamaat who are also fighting independence. So the BJP hopes that the two main parties, the NC and the PDP, would not get the majority of seats in the valley. If either of these two parties cannot muster between 25 to 30 seats, it would be advantage BJP, as it would enable them to cobble a majority with independents or mergers to their party. Of course, let's be very clear that this is a very critical time, and this is a game that is fraught with grave risks. Any miscalculation by the BJP could send the valley hurtling back to its violent past. So the stakes are very high, and caution is the word. But the big news is that Jammu and Kashmir are back on the path to democracy, and just holding an election is a huge symbol of that. We hope that the elections remain free, fair, and devoid of violence, and the best party wins. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nothing But the Truth. For an in-depth analysis, do read my cover story in the latest issue of India Today magazine on the J&K elections. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.